All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to our webinar. Hey, I have to throw some dad joke kind of stuff in there, right?
There you go. There you
go. So I'm very excited to be here today with my good friend, Alex Farling with Lifecycle Insights. And we are going to talk about something that is extremely important for all MSPs, all IT service providers around the world, and that is Q4. And what we're going to do with Q4, right? I mean, the clock is ticking as we speak. And
well, it depends on where you are in the world, because Q4 for everyone is different, right? So here in the US, about half of our companies, maybe a little more, use the calendar year. In England, I believe it is Q4 starts in April. I'm sorry, Q4 is January to March, so Q1 is April. So depending on where you are in the world, like there's a lot of flipped and mangled up Q4s, if you will. But this is that thing where no matter where in the world you are, it's something you need to think about and something you need to put into your process. And if you're in the US, you probably need to look at this twice a year and learn whether your customers are on a calendar year or on a fiscal year, so that you can shift this around a little bit for them too. Because no two companies, of course, it'd be too easy if everybody did it the same way.
Oh, exactly. And, who wants anything easy, right?
Right. That would just take all the fun out of life.
Absolutely. And, and I like to say, when you think about the airline industry, when a plane takes off, any seats that are left open, the opportunity to fill them is gone, right?
Yeah.
The revenue is gone.
Yeah, I never thought about about it that way. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, I mean, so now we are in a position where we have now just less than 3 months left in this year to drive revenue. And, sure, we can say, oh, well, we can always do that in January, but no, we want to do that now, right?
Well, and I'm the first guy to go out and say, I'm not a fan of monthly or quarterly targets that rearrange your sales cycle, right? I don't want to go out and go, it's the end of the year, we got to sell everything half price to get the number we wanted to get by the end of the year. We really want to do this. We want to do it in a smart way. We're not a Wall Street publicly traded company that cares that if we close the quarter on point, right? But what we are is intelligent individuals who understand that at the end of the year, our clients are going to have their accountant come to them and say, hey, with all that free COVID money you got, you made a bucket of cash this year and you got to spend some of it. Go buy a boat, go buy a truck, go buy something, right? And I want to be in line before the guy that's selling the boat, before the guy that's selling the truck, and before the overzealous owner that's going to go out and say, I'm just going to buy an iPad for all my sales guys, because what could possibly go wrong? I'll tell my IT guy about it when they show up, right? And I'm sure nobody's ever had that happen, but it happened to me and it annoyed the living hell out of me. So, we put into place this process that we got in touch with everybody at the end of their fiscal quarter, the end of their fiscal year, their last quarter, and just had that conversation. Like, hey, did you have a banging year? Did you have a terrible year? If you had a terrible year, then maybe we talk about what we can push into next year for what we're doing here in Q4. But some right size alignment in Q4, number one, builds great customer relationships. And number two, just make sure that you get your share of the year-end revenue, and that your customer doesn't carry over a bunch of technical debt because you didn't get to talk to them early.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, people are gonna buy whatever that might be great for them, and and it ultimately is not good for the business. And when a business owner decides to use their business as an ATM machine, that's not good, right?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, that's why we have them. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the business gets to eat before we take out of the ATM machine. And I think that's the conversation we need to have. So from a high level at Lifecycle Insights, our goal was all to take data that you already have access to and make it more usable and more friendly and easier to get out in front of your clients. And this is just one more case where if your client had all the data, maybe they'd make that decision a little different.
Right.
And that's the point that we're trying to make. We also talk about how we can use this as a wedge selling issue, right? If I'm an MSP, I'm going to start advertising on Facebook, on LinkedIn, a couple other places that, hey, if you're one of my customers, make sure to reach out to me and have that year-end conversation, right? I'm reaching out to all my customers. That ad is not for them. It's for the other guy in my town who works with a different MSP who hasn't reached out to them to go, Why is he reaching out to talk you end of year spend to those customers? So we'll talk about that too, like how to use it as a sales wedge to attract some new prospects who want to be a little more fiscally mature and really step up their game a little bit. So we'll talk about how this fourth quarter QBR or even a little mini business review can really start to move the needle.
So before we jump right into the content, for those of you who don't know me, I am Dan Tomaszewski. I am the president of.
You're a legend. Everybody knows you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a common name. And
how many followers do you have on Facebook?
On the Facebook group, we have over 3,500.
Okay, so Dan Tomaszewski, the guy nobody knows. Go ahead and finish that.
And we have, like we said, we have Alex Farling with Lifecycle Insights. But what I'd like to do is, Alex, I'd like to have you give us a little background about yourself, because you're more than just Lifecycle Insights, and you have a long history in our industry.
Yeah, we're going on 17 and a half years now. I guess by the end of the year it'll be 18 years.
Nice.
So 17 and a half years ago, 17 and fourscore and a bunch of months ago, I don't know, a long time ago, I bought a break fix computer shop, and it evolved much like many of our partners do. It became a managed services provider over the years. I made all the same mistakes that MSPs do and fought really hard to fix a lot of them, and paid expensive consultants and hired salespeople and did all the stuff. And at the end of the day, I sat and looked at it and said, didn't matter who I put in the account management role or who I put in the in that really customer success role or that CIO role, they all struggled. And at the end of the day, what I learned was our tools sucked. And we had all this data that was buried in our tools and no way to get it out easily and get it in front of our customers in a way that was actionable to them. And so, the concept was kind of brought out that what we needed to do was use the data we already had better and then supplement it and improve it a little bit to give our customers actionable data, not nerd data. And this goes back to a Colin Powell thing where he says, give me somewhere between 30 and 70% of all the information and I'll make the right decision almost every time. If you give me less than 30% of the info, I don't have enough information to make the decision. And if you give me more than 70%, I get stuck in this paralysis of analysis thing where I know so much that I'm overwhelmed with information, can't decide, can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing, where you just belabor the point and maybe never make a decision. So, we want to go to our customers with that magic 30 to 70% stripped out of all the tech and just give them the base actionable, decisionable information and help them move forward. So that became Lifecycle Insights. And a year into Lifecycle Insights, it became obvious to me that I couldn't do a good job of running an MSP and committing a ton of time to this project. And this project was just taking off. So I sold the MSP almost on accident and came full-time at Lifecycle Insights. And since then, in the last year, we've experienced about 400% growth. So absolutely rocking and rolling and having fun doing it. So
that's awesome. And so you did for MSPs what MSPs do for their clients, and that's solve problems.
Yeah. So we had a data problem.
Yeah.
We had a data problem, and we found smart guys that could do smart stuff. And now they work on that and do smart stuff. And I just stand around here and talk about it.
Yep.
Like most CEOs, I just stand around.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But, and the best part about this deal is I didn't even have to be CEO. It worked out wonderfully. So now I just get to be the guy that stands around and hangs out and talks about it. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's kick it off. Let's get started because there's money to be made and the clock is ticking.
There's money to be made and the clock is ticking. That is true. But I already went to the Colin Powell story. I love quotes. I love quotes, and I love these catchy reminders of things that put things in perspective for us, right? And as I was preparing for this, our CEO, Marnie Stockman, gave me this and said, at 211 degrees, water's hot. At 212 degrees, it boils. With boiling water comes steam, and with steam, you can power a train. That hit me like a brick because we're really just looking for one or two little things we can fix in our Q4 that will really move the needle with our customer right now today and set them up for success in next year. So this whole conversation is about little 1 degree things, little tiny things we can do that aren't really hard work, that aren't, it's not like overhauling your service desk or, installing a new RMM or PSA tool that's super complicated. These are simple things that are really just little 1-degree movements that can help us really get more actionable outcome, that can create steam, that can start to move the train, right? If I can reach out to a couple of customers and get each one of them to make a $20 or $30 or $40,000 purchase with year-end money, then that changes how my year ends, right? If I get 3 customers to make $40,000 choices by the end of the year, I just made another 120 grand this year.
Right.
To how many MSPs does that really move the needle? And if you're a smaller MSP, maybe you get, 5 customers to make $10,000 in spend. And if you're a small MSP doing 500 grand a year, that still really moves the needle. Right. So we want to talk about things that if we have that next level conversation with our customer, that strategic conversation about, hey, have you had a conversation with your accountant about how the year's going to end? I've got some ideas if you're in a place where you have to find a place to spend money. Those are good conversations to have, and we'll talk about how to get into those.
I'd like to throw out one more quote, because I like quotes too. Unfortunately, I don't know who the originator is of this, but never underestimate the buying power of your customer. I think a lot of times we think, oh, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to spend the money. And if you don't try, you're not going to get anywhere. You want to make that try. And
that has never been more true than it is today. So many companies got COVID money. They got stimulus cash from the federal government, and they haven't been able to spend it all, or their revenues weren't hit as bad as they thought they would be. So they got all this money, and guess what? At the end of the year, they're going to have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
So if they can spend money today that they maybe wouldn't have spent for 6 months, but avoid paying all that tax, that may be a real win for some of your customers. So not only don't underestimate their buying power, but also live in the world that they're in today, which is they probably have more cash in the bank than they've ever had in the history of their business. And for the MSPs listening, a lot of you guys are probably in that boat. Don't think your customers are that different unless they're in one of the segments that was really, really hard hit. And we'll talk about how to have conversations with those folks too.
Yeah.
The other little nuance I want to talk about today is done is better than perfect, because perfect is never done. And we talk at Lifecycle Insights a lot about defeating the blank page and getting started with something, but then getting it out there and improving on it iteratively as it lives, right? As it's a living, breathing thing. So, this presentation, for example, this is the second time I've pitched this slide deck. The first time we did this, all the yellow letters were blue. And they blended in with the background a little bit. First time I did it, I went, I can live with that. That's good enough. And then the second time we went through and iterated it and made those colors pop and made those things look a little better. There is a reality that came with COVID and with working from home, that people started to see it as okay if you didn't get quite as dressed up for a meeting, or if you didn't put quite as much spit and polish on a presentation, or if something just wasn't quite as dialed in as it used to be. And think about how many folks you work with in the MSP space, consultants, thought leaders, these other people that we listen to, who now, they used to give you these really fancy presentations. They did webinars, they did all this crazy stuff. And now what do? They do a 5-minute video on their smartphone in their car, on their lunch break, or while they're walking their dog, right? And we absorb that content and we go, oh my God, I learned something there. That was awesome. And it wasn't as spit and polished, and it wasn't as perfected as it used to be. So don't hold yourself back from having these meetings with your customers. Don't hold yourselves back from getting out and doing a little bit of marketing and having some of these email blasts go out, waiting for them to be perfect, because done is better than perfect, especially when there's a timeline. And if you wait until December 15th to get these out, guess what? Your customers have already talked to their accountants. They've already figured out how they're going to spend the money. They probably already own the boat, and the money's already gone, right? Because they're going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks, and there's going to be no time to have this conversation. We want to start this early. We want to set this up for success. So carry this through to other pieces of your business, but also think about and obviously on the cybersecurity side, it's the exact opposite, right? We have to be right every single time, 100% of the time. Right. So for MSPs, it's important to know where to draw the differentiator, right? On marketing, on customer communication, on those kind of things, done is better than perfect. On cybersecurity, obviously, we know what you guys are up against, and I wouldn't take anything away from that. So with that said, we're going to give you guys a few quick and easy templates. Use them, don't use them as ideas. I don't care what you do with them. But if I were you as an MSP, I'd take these, I'd look at them, I'd see if they live within the DNA of my MSP. If not, I'd use them as thought provokers. to go help me create some content that I wanted to use, put something out on social media. And I don't mean once and I don't mean twice. I mean, post it 40 times a month for the next 2 months. Get something out there that says to your customer, it is time to have a conversation about your end of year technology. And once is not enough, twice is not enough. I mean, Dan, you can talk to this as well or more than I can.
Yeah.
On social media than I do.
The key here is the consistency is critical because number one, repetition is the mother skill. I mean, we are inundated with noise, constant noise. I look at my notifications on my phone and my head wants to explode, right? Yep. And so sometimes I'll see something on Facebook or LinkedIn and I'm like, man, that looks interesting. But sometimes I'm like, I'm just too busy to look into this, but I would love to learn more about it. I will, maybe at times I'll, save it somewhere, hoping to get back to it. But I hope, and I hope that they continue to put messages out. So next time I'm on Facebook or next time I'm on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'll see that again because then that's my reminder.
Well, and there's also like the first time you put it out, maybe 10,000 people see it. But there's probably 200,000 people that need to see your message.
Right.
So, it's that thing where you're way more tired of your message than anybody is who's reading it. Right.
Yeah.
Our CEO gives me a hard time because we do a boot camp and I've taught the same boot camp 3 or 4 times now. I can't remember. I'm so bored with it. I'm just not interested. I have and it's hard for me to go back and redeliver that same content because God, guys, this is the same thing I've been talking about forever. Oh, wait, you're still on week 1. You've never been here before. Right. And so there's a little bit of, you've got to get in front of people when the timing is right, when the opportunity is right. And you can't just float something out. Everybody tries to do social media marketing and they go, hey, I did it twice and I didn't make $10,000. I'm not sure what I'm wasting my time here for. And I can tell you, starting our company, it was 9 months of marketing before it really moved the needle on new subscriptions. We're not looking to move the needle on new subscriptions with this. So we can just do this, something once a day for the next 3 months, get it out there, make sure that people are in front of it and land something out there that says, reach out to your IT guy. Now's the time to talk about year-end spend out.
Right.
Where you buy that boat, make sure you've taken care of your IT needs and get that kind of content out there. It does 2 things. When your customers see it, they realize you're not just calling on them because we got to make Dan's Maserati payment this month, right? This is actually a thing. This 4th quarter spend out is actually a thing. And okay, well, maybe I should answer that email or pick up the phone and give him a call back. The other thing is we want other companies in town to see our message on social media and go, my IT guy's not talking about prioritizing my technology needs. That sounds cool. We want to make sure that we drive that little wedge there because then you bump into somebody and think, oh, I saw something on Facebook about what you guys are doing. Oh yeah, I'm sure your IT guy's talking to you about it too. Well, actually, he hasn't bothered to call me. Right. So this is only part of the message though. This goes along with some stuff that we're going to do in the in the email marketing or in the email side of this.
And what you just said there, if I can jump in, what you just said as far as, oh yeah, I saw what you had out there. Don't think that because people aren't clicking like or commenting on your post that they're not paying attention and they're not seeing it. Yeah. People are seeing it and people will come up to you and say, hey, you know what? I saw that. And all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, you're kind of surprised because, you expect people to like it. It's not like your friends liking your posts, personal stuff. People are just looking at it, and, so you have to be consistent. You have to be committed and you have to have the thick skin to know that, just because you don't get those likes or the comments or immediate phone calls.
Impressions. Yeah.
Right. People are paying attention.
Well, and a lot of this too is just brand recognition, right? Now, when I send them something that has this messaging already in it, then we're going to have a conversation that's a little different when they open the email and say, oh, that's that thing he was talking about on Facebook. And then when they respond to me, they'll be ready for that conversation. So these are great things. We're going to give you guys a couple of quick templates. We'll give you some email templates as well, and just give you a starting point. And I don't want anybody to believe that I think these are where you should start. I think that every one of you, your DNA, the DNA of your MSP is what makes you special and different. keep some of that. Use these as a thought provoker. Put 30 more minutes into it, build your own, get them out there on social media. Don't spend days and days and days at this. It's really not worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. You'll get just as much by getting something out there that's done than you will but from getting something out there that's perfect. And with that, I kind of want to talk about, the different conversations we're having with different customers at different points in time, right? And at end of year spend, I feel like we always say you've got to meet your customer where they're at, right? Not everybody's in the same place in their customer journey. Some people, you just onboarded them and they're still paying off some technical debt. Some people have been with you for, 5-10 years. They've done everything you told them to do. They're purring along nicely and things are easy and smooth, right? So we're going to have two different conversations. One for the customer who has a bunch of technology debt and the other for the customer who doesn't have a bunch of technology debt. And when I use that phrase, I want everybody to kind of understand what I'm talking about. In our tool, we highlight things like, how many assets does a customer have and what's their dollar value that have outlived their essential usefulness, right? If we say every PC is good for 5 years, how many dollars in PCs do they have that are 5+ years old? That may be $20,000 in technology debt. And that's really the first thing we want to tackle here. If you have those customers, that's low hanging fruit, especially when they have money in the bank. Let's get caught up on that debt snowball. The customers that don't have it will make a little different approach. We'll kind of approach them from the congratulations, you did everything you were supposed to do. Now let's talk about how we can make the next couple of years easier to make sure we don't dig a hole again. And we'll have two conversations there. So with that, I think we prepped a poll. Go ahead and fire that up and we'll get some folks engaged here.
You got it. Let's go ahead and launch poll number 1. There we go. So
I'm sure, knowing what I know about MSPs, that nobody on this call has Windows 7 or Windows XP or Server 2003 or 2008 still deployed. I'm sure those are all gone. But in the unrealistic scenario that you just onboarded a brand new customer who might have one of these things still laying around, give us an idea how many of those you've got, because we're all friends here. There's a possibility that you guys still have some of that laying around. And actually, I think we intended to leave a none option on there, but it didn't make the poll. So if you have none, maybe you can throw it in chat. There you go. Carrie called us out. There was supposed to be another answer.
That is my fault. I
got dropped on the cutting room floor, I think is the way the professionals in the business call it. Yeah.
I will take the heat on that one. There's no reflection on Alex whatsoever. And
it would be my first mistake ever,
Normally I would have Taylor do it, but I kind of jumped ahead and I went ahead and did it myself as soon as I got them from you. And so I'll use the hustle and bustle of
right, moving fast, fast and break things. That's that was the Google mantra back in the day. So I like the zero EOL devices in production. That's awesome. But for those of you who do have a few laying around, and I see some of you guys have just 1 or 2 and a couple of customers here, 3 to 5, still manageable numbers. But every last one of these is opportunity. And what this tells me is there's a lot of opportunity out there. We got a good number of responses, and those responses come with a reassurance that I wasn't the only one who had a customer that held on to Windows 7 too long, right? So that makes me feel good to know that it wasn't just because I couldn't get my act together. Sometimes our customers just don't move at the speed that we want them to move or the speed that we need them to move. So with that said, we'll move forward and kind of talk through what it looks like to help a customer catch up on technology debt. This is a customer who may have had a tough year. All of our customers think they had a tough year, regardless of how much worse somebody else's was, right? So I'm going to give you guys an email template that just says, hey, Mr. Customer, what's going on? Where are you at? And walk them through what it looks like to have a conversation that can bail them out for the rest of the year. But first, I want to talk about how to deliver email messages like this to your customers, because the how is just as important as the why and as the result when we get into this. So a lot of us have, a PSA tool that has some sort of email product in it that'll let us send out spam blasts. Throw it away for this. Go out and get yourself MailChimp. Go out and get yourself HubSpot. Anything that will let you send a tracked email and track your open rates. This is really what we want to do. If you have your marketing manager so dialed in, you can do that. Great. You're better than I was. We didn't have it dialed in that well. But what I want is to send an email and know that somebody was able to open it or answer it, because 30 days, 15, 30 days afterwards, I'm going to send them another one if they haven't responded. If they haven't opened it, I know I have a different issue, right? If they haven't opened it, I'm going to change the subject line and I'm going to make it a little bit more aggressive. We really need to talk. If they have opened it and haven't responded to me, we really need to talk. If they haven't opened it, a different issue there. And at some point you send it a couple of times, then we pick up the phone and just call this customer and go, sent you a couple of emails. I'm not sure why you're not getting them, but we really need to have a conversation, right? But my favorite is to do about 3 emails. And my first one is, hey, I'd like to talk about year-end spend down. My second one is, hey, that last email was really important. Please open this. And my third one is always the network's down, right? I get 100% open rate on that if anybody was guessing.
Right.
And everybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit of a sarcastic punk, and my customers knew that. So I could say that, and then I'd follow up with a sorry to alarm you with the misleading email title. But it was really important that we talk, right? Yeah. And when I get that 100% open rate, then people would call me and bust my stones and go, "What are you doing, trying to give me a heart attack?" Right? And that's great. We can start there and have a conversation. But what we really want is to track opens and track deliveries so that we know, hey, this customer hasn't looked at 3 emails. I need to pick up the phone and get on the phone with him because this isn't working for him. But what I had was a process that I would sit down and send 50 emails the first day. It took me about 2 hours to do that, send 50 emails to 50 customers, track them all, get all the data, put them with the template, and get it all out the door. And then once a week, I would dedicate an hour to following up with anybody who we needed to follow up with, who hadn't scheduled time with me. So that said, some sort of an email tool that lets you get those out easy and get accurate reporting on who's opened them and who hasn't.
And some of the, I'll just jump in, some of the email platforms, like we use MailerLite, and I'm sure MailerLite, it sounded like Miller Lite for a second.
It did.
But MailerLite has a function that I'm sure many others have as well, where you can resend to those that have been unopened. And so that's a pretty cool tool, because then it's just automatic. It will just bop them out to everybody that hasn't opened it, and it just gives them that second ding. That's
awesome. I didn't even know that one. So that would have saved me a little bit of extra time. And then the next trick to this is a scheduler link. Now, I know a lot of MSPs have their act together. They're using Teams, they're using 365. They've got all of those tools deployed, and a lot of them are using Microsoft Bookings. If you're not using Microsoft Bookings, go get the free Calendly, go get TimeZest. It integrates with ConnectWise and Autotask and has a free product. You don't have to break the bank to do this. The free product will do. But get something that lets you send a meeting link to your customer that says, hey, hop on my calendar for a quick call, right? This is the call to action. The call to action isn't anything complex. It's just schedule a time to talk to me, so you don't have to try and catch up to me. I don't have to try and catch up to you. It's an easy appointment setter. And I'm here to tell you, your appointment setting rates will go up 50% if it's not respond to me. Let's play tag back and forth and see if we can't schedule a time, or are any of these times good for you? Right. And then you've got to go do that across 50 clients. It just doesn't scale. So get something that scales, get yourself an appointment setting link, and get it in these emails. It is absolutely imperative to speed up the process.
And, while, going back to your first slide, that done is better than perfect. My thought would be, most of us are Office 365, Microsoft 365 shops. And utilizing bookings would make the most sense, because it's showing our clients how, to use a tool that's available. But given the fact that we're in the midst of fourth quarter and we need to get moving, if you just need to put something in place, like Calendly, whatever the case may be, just do it, because done is better than perfect.
And you can spend time in the future. Yeah, you can spend time in the future figuring out which one's perfect and which one best aligns with your business processes, whether you want bookings doing the 365 thing or TimeZest integrating to your PSA, which pushes to 365. Like you can Colin Powell your way into a big problem there with 100% of the info and take forever to make the right decision. You're absolutely right on that. Get one done and get one out the door, and that will serve you well. So with that, let's talk about this customer, right? This client has some technology debt. He's one of the, the responses that we got that said, yeah, I've still got some Windows 7 floating around. We're going to reach out to him and just go, hey, look, this has been a crazy year. I don't know how it ended for you, but I did notice you've got some hardware assets we want to talk about. So attached, I'm kind of showing you some of the assets that we want you to look at. And all I'm giving them is a quick asset list. There's a bunch of tools you can do that in. Obviously, we have our tool. We like our tool. It makes it really fast to spit these out. I was able to spit them out of 50 customers in less than 30 minutes, and it took me longer to build the emails and get everything else out than any other portion of this. But get yourself a list of all your Windows 7 machines, right? Sorted by customer. You can get that out of any number of tools. And get this email out and just explain to your customer, it's just been a crazy year for everybody, but I continue to be shocked by the number of clients who tell me that they have money they have to spend by the end of the year, right? And I don't want you to lie to your customers, so you can change that to the number of people telling them that there's people out there that have to spend money by the end of the year, because I just told you that. Now you're being 100% honest with your customer. But seriously, your customers are going to tell you, yes, I have money in the bank. Yes, I have to, that there's money I need to spend by the end of the year. You can get into subsection 179 of the IRS code and all that crazy stuff. I never went that deep, but there are tax advantages to doing some of this by the end of the year. You may put yourself in a corner trying to acquire equipment this quick because it has to be delivered for 179 to apply and some things like that. But go ahead.
I was going to say, and keep in mind too, business owners, let's face it, as business owners, we all have a level of ego, right? And there's a level of pride that a lot of business owners will be, I got money to spend, because that means, we've had a profitable year. So if you can get them to get into that mode of telling you that they have money to spend, then you positioned it well, because then that means, okay, let's focus on growing your business so that next year you have even more money to spend, because those tools are going to help fuel additional growth.
And when we're nicely pointing out that, hey, here's some stuff that probably should have already been replaced by now, it's overdue for replacement. I put the age next to them all so they can see, hey, he's showing me I should replace a 9-year-old workstation. It's kind of a duh moment. And then we'll send them the scheduling link. As always, I look forward to the opportunity to help. That's it. That is a simple email. You can make it your own. You can personalize it. But the point here is simple. Mr. Customer, there's a decision that needs your attention, and it's kind of timely. Let's get that made by the end of the year. There's going to be some tax benefits to you in doing so. And then we would just send out something that looked similar to this, right? Here's a virtual server that has an operating system that can't be supported anymore. Here's 5 PCs that can't be supported anymore. They average 13 to just under 8 years old, and one crazy white box that we can't tell how old it is, but based on what's in it, we know it's got to go. Here you go, Mr. Customer. There's a bunch of red on here. I'd like to see all that cleaned up by next year. It's literally that simple. Present a report just like this to each and every one of your customers who has technology debt. For those of you that are all caught up, all dialed up, great. That's a different story. We're going to have that conversation in just a minute. There's something we can do for those customers. But for these guys, it's really a matter of highlight the point at which they've left themselves exposed and show them how to fix it, right? We can do this simply by replacing these assets. Here's the cost to replace each one of these assets. Doesn't have to be a formal quote. Doesn't have to be down to the penny. Roughly $1,500 to replace a PC. Here you go, Mr. Customer. How many of these do you want to knock out before the end of the year? That's the conversation we're going to have.
Yeah.
And it should be that simple and that easy. And back to what Dan said about customers and their ego. Nobody got to be a CEO by not being a little bit competitive. Nobody got to run a company by not having just a little bit of that I hate to lose mentality. When they see red on paper associated with their company and their assets, there's something native in their brain that goes, I'm better than that, right? There's a switch. And when they see this is what makes them act. So Absolutely. To that point, let's go look at the other scenario, the scenario for the customer who's done what you've told them all along, the customer who doesn't have technology debt, who isn't carrying a bunch of this. And let's step in and talk about the poll for that customer, because for that customer, we want to talk about, how many of your clients have some huge, it doesn't have to be huge, but rather sizable project planned for 2022, right? And not yet might be a pretty reasonable answer, but we got a pretty nice little run here between just a couple and most of them. So, we got a couple of customers here that have big money to spend next year. That's worth talking about now, right? And I've had MSPs come to me and say, I don't want to take all their money now because then I got to pay taxes on it this year. Why shouldn't I let them pay taxes on it and I'll deal with it next year? But at the end of the day, there is a huge advantage to having that cash in your hand. Pay the taxes, man. Be profitable, pay your taxes. There are worse things that could happen to you in life, right? And talk to your accountant about the reasonable ways that you can shelter that and protect yourself from that. But 1 or 2 clients with big projects planned for 2022, that's awesome. I like that I see nobody who says none, but there's some opportunity. That means the folks who are paying attention today, the folks who are online here with us today, are actually out there, working on this stuff proactively, and they haven't let all of 2022 just be a wasteland for their customer yet.
And the more you, you get engaged with those conversations, even if it means next year, you then know exactly what their goals and objectives are. You know that you can, much like a drip campaign, you can then continue to have conversations with them, as time progresses, and they won't forget about it then. Because let's think about it. Sometimes plans change. Sometimes, they say, oh, I want to do this, but out of sight, out of mind. And the more you know about it, the more you can converse with them, the better from that angle. But you also, you can think about how to architect that, because, there could be things that, they're wanting to do something that might be unique and complex. And, you have that time on your side, and way better to know now than in March when they say, all right, we're ready to do it, and wanted a proposal within 2 weeks, and you're like, yeah. Whoa.
I had a customer that came to me the other day and said, one of my customers bought a building and they close on it in 30 days. And I need to start wiring it in 30 days so they can move in. And like, they want to move in like a week after they bought, a week after they close on it. And he's like, it would have been nice to know this 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, how did you not know they were looking for a building?
Right.
Nobody goes out and buys a $400,000 building without doing some shopping first, asking for talking to the bank, some of that kind of stuff. So, part of this is being in front of your customers on a regular basis, having these strategic conversations, the dreaded QBR, right? A strategic business review, a technical business review, a cybersecurity business review, some sort of hey, I care about my customer enough to go meet with them and understand what their goals are. Right? The customer's goal is as important as the technology. And we're just having this conversation internally. And, something that went across our internal chat was CS, customer success, equals CX, customer experience. Are we good to them? Do we deliver? Are they up? Is their uptime high? Is their security realistic? Does their plus CO, customer outcomes? And I think that's the one we forget about all the time. We're so busy with the data and the bits and the technology and the security that we forget that at the end of the day, technology is just a tool to help our customer achieve outcomes in their business. And if they could do business without it on pencil and paper and achieve the same outcomes, guess what? They'd use pencil and paper, because technology way overcomplicates everything and introduces this extra layer of risk. So, it's really, that was an interesting math problem from our CEO, who happens to formerly be a math teacher. Customer experience and customer outcomes really is what equals customer success. And customer success is the metric that we want to be focusing on, right? What are we doing to make our customers successful? Because at that point, we're no longer that expense. We're just a budgetary item included in their business in their goals and their business outcomes. So let's talk to this customer that has big projects planned into 2022. There may be an opportunity for us to sit down with this customer and just say, hey, look, as the year ends, we get 2 common themes from our customers. Either we've budgeted some stuff, or we should be doing some stuff that we just can't afford to do at the end of this year. Or maybe there's something big scheduled next year that we have year-end funds that we could do this year. And that's the opportunity to say, it doesn't have to be technical debt. If you've got a customer where you go look and you go, their oldest PC is 4 years old, their server's new, their switches are new, like everything's in a good place. Maybe they need your cybersecurity product. Maybe they need, an employee training session or schedule. What else is it that in a perfect world you would have this customer do? And some of that includes looking at their, Q1, Q2, Q3 of 2022 and saying, hey, if you could get this money off the books this year, would there be value to you? Right. And, again, you have the MSP who's going to come to you and say, but I don't want to pay taxes on it this year if they were going to pay me for it anyway next year. Well, you know what? COVID, Delta, Zeta, whatever could come rolling right around next year and sap every nickel out of their pocket. Take the money while you can get it. Take the money while the opportunity's there and stash it away and deal with next year. Right? A bird in the hand.
You never know when you might decide that you get that offer to be acquired. You might get that offer to be acquired, and you think, man, I wish I would have had those sales in last year's numbers, and now it's not going to help with my valuation and so on.
Yeah, the guy that bought my business walked right into a very sizable 5-figure project that we hadn't been able to close and get done fast enough.
Wow.
And that's all money that I should have walked home with, and we just weren't able to get it done fast enough.
Yeah.
And the customer had been dragging their feet on it for 3 years. So, had we had the opportunity to go to them and say, hey, I know you got COVID cash sitting in your pocket, we would have had a way different conversation with this customer. And they were a good customer, and they worked with us, and we knew what it was budgetary constraints, and they just were never in a position to make this move. But if a customer gets in the position to make this move, help them with it. If a customer actually had a bad COVID and they're barely staying afloat, go have a real world conversation with them about that too. Because that customer experience, the thing you can build, the thing you can fix by having that conversation with your customer is more valuable than one project. If you can go sit down with that customer and go, I had some stuff scheduled for you to replace in Q4, and I understand where you're at. I know COVID was really bad for you guys, and you're just hanging on by the string of your teeth. Let's push these projects into Q1 or Q2 of next year. Let's push these replacements into Q1 or Q2 of next year. Give you a little more time to recover. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Customer? Guess what? I just made a friend, or I just reinforced a relationship.
Invaluable. I mean, and they will not forget that, right?
They won't forget it.
No.
And we've elevated ourselves from, the guy who turns a screwdriver to fix things to the guy who thinks strategically about how his customer's business operates. That's the difference between an account manager and a CIO, right? A CIO has to take business outcomes and business budgets and the actual condition of the customer entity into play. An account manager just gets to focus on what's best for the MSP. So if we can make that next level step into, and I hate the term, trusted advisor, right? If we can get that, if we can be that mythical creature, this gives us the opportunity to bridge a gap with a customer who maybe all the rest of their vendors are knocking on their door going, hey, you owe me money. And we're the ones standing there going, it'll be okay. We'll get there next year. Like we'll put a plan in place. Like it's going to be work. Let's be honest, this stuff doesn't go away. We're just rolling up the snowball, and eventually we're going to have to, melt this thing and get rid of all this, but we can do it. Right. So we don't know what situation they're in. Let's schedule a meeting with all these folks. Put the appropriate call to action for each of those customers in this email template, and let's send them a scheduling link and ask them to reach out and schedule time with us.
And that conversation that you have with that client that's not ready to buy, that you're helping them say, let's push this forward to next year. That is the difference between a client vendor relationship and a partnership. A client vendor relationship, is going to be like, they're not going to spend any money. I'm going to ignore them. I'm going to move on to the next person who's going to spend money, versus being in a scenario where it's a partnership and you genuinely care about their success, because, their success is going to help contribute to your success.
Exactly. Sorry, just responded to somebody here in the chat. So we'll make sure and send all the links out in the follow-up email. I saved them for the last slide, so they weren't in the middle in the way here. But for the folks who had to run, we'll make sure those get out to you along with the recording. So yeah, I mean, this is the difference, and that vendor also is not building a relationship, right? That vendor who's, I'm either not going to talk to you, or because we're right back to that company that has a quarterly goal and they have to sell X number of dollars by the end of the quarter, right? They're going to ignore you, they're going to devalue you, or they're going to try and push you to buy something that you can't afford right now. And by putting ourselves in that customer's shoes and working with them through it, we really set ourselves up in a better place. We can also send that customer a little breakdown that just says, hey, here's a couple projects I have planned for you. I've got 2 here that are not scheduled that we should have gotten out. These are things that we kind of wanted to do for you this year or early next. They're $21,000, $22,000. This is what I think you're going to need to spend in your budget for the remainder of this year and for first quarter next year. If these numbers freak you out, then let's see what we can push into Q2 and Q3 of next year. if you look at these numbers and go, oh God, I thought they'd be worse, maybe we tackle one of these projects this year and we can still fit it in here. But by having a talk about just a small little chunk of the budget without going into, hey, here's what we got to replace in December 2024, we can have a very framed, very actionable discussion again around that Colin Powell thing. We've cut off the 70% at the bottom. We're only showing the 30 to 70% that lives right here in the real time. And we're going to have a conversation about just these couple of things. And if this isn't enough information for that customer to make their decision, they're going to email you right back and go, hey, I like where you're going, but can you show me what all of next year looks like? Can you show me what Q2 and Q3 of next year look like, just so I can plan? Because our customers don't like surprises. But this helps us set the stage for them that, hey, there's $21,000 in stuff that I really think we should have done by now. That next level cybersecurity project, replacing that server, whatever it was, there's 21 grand here that I think we should have done and we're not there. Do you want to fit it in this year or next year? And it's an easy conversation.
Yeah, I mean, think about too, you know, when you go into a prospective client and you talk about technology budget, I mean, 99% of the time they're like, budget?
When I go to
a
prospective budget, I bring a sample budget and I go, this is what it looks like to get a budget from me. I'm sure the one your current guy gives you is formatted a little differently or something like that, but I'm sure you're used to looking at stuff like this. And they go,
my guy doesn't give me one.
I've only ever seen an invoice. What's a budget? Right.
Right.
And it is one of the best wedge selling tactics you've ever seen, especially when the budget you hand them as a sample is 5 years, no detail. It looks just like this, only it's just 5 years. It's here you're going to spend $30,000 in 2022, $40,000 in 2023, $60,000 in 2024, and then the spend goes back down. And you're like, and we would have talked about 2024 early and often and how to avoid that problem, right? I'm sure your other guy does that with you.
And you've twisted, you know, you've changed their mindset from you being on the other side of the table as the tech guy to it being business person to business person. You are on the same level as them. And that is golden, you know, because that allows them to think, you know what, you know, this is not just some tech guy. He's got my business in mind and he's thinking about my business. And I mean, I have had so many scenarios where I've sat across the table and they have talked to me about things that are completely unrelated to technology. It could be about growth. It could be about hiring. There's so many things that they bounce things off of me, because I built that relationship that I'm business person to business person. And that is what keeps them coming back for more. Yeah. That's what keeps them, you know, keeps your name at the top of mind as they're talking to other business owners that might be struggling with their technology. And it's a win-win, and you just can't pass it up.
Well, and I just got off the phone with a fairly advanced company that has a couple of account managers out there doing this kind of work, and we're coaching them through kind of reshaping what their business reviews look like. And one of the things that we talked about was the difference between going out to sell someone something and going out and helping someone figure out how and when they're going to address the exposure and risk that they have in their company. Right. So it's one thing for me to walk out the door with a project in my mind and go, I need to sell them a server. It's another thing for me to go out and have with a couple of quotes and a budget and go, I need to help them figure out when they're going to be able to replace this asset. Right. And those are two totally different things. If I'm going out trying to close a deal, I feel that I sound desperate. I feel desperate. My goal is to hit a quota and get a deal closed. If my goal is to help them figure out when they can afford to replace an asset, instead it's the question is when. Mr. Customer, when do you feel like is the right time to do this? You can see it's getting old. You can see we're starting to have some risk here because there's no warranties. We're going to be eBay for parts if you're not careful. Let's have a real serious conversation about when it makes sense to do these projects that are on the list. And when we turn it from an if to a when, if I can close the business, to when do they do the business, it goes from sales to consulting. If to when is one of the most important transitions that you can possibly get. It's almost as important as taking that quarterly business review and changing it from here's my backup stats, here's my antivirus stats, here's my CSAT stats. Oh, and by the way, we scored 100 on your CSAT. Your people love me. You should continue to pay me, right? It's as important as shifting from that to here's a strategic budget and things we worry about for you in the future, instead of talking about why we justified our existence, right? This if to when shift super important. And end of the year is a great time to start that conversation with your clients if you haven't been doing it. And then just let them know, hey, Mr. Customer, I'd like to continue to have these kind of conversations with you. Is there value in seeing this kind of stuff? Once you have the meeting, once you get the customer engaged, is there value in doing this kind of stuff? Should we do this twice a year? At your size, I'd probably like to see this information twice a year. Oh, well, you know what? Yeah, once a year is probably fine with me. Hey, guess what? Your customer just told you he wants a QBR once a year. You better put it on your calendar and schedule it because he expects it. It was just his idea.
Yeah, and schedule it with them. Put it, send them a meeting request immediately so it's on their calendar. Don't wait, because when it's fresh, when they say yes, don't wait.
And a year later, they'll move it. Like they'll look at their calendar and go, "Oh, I need to move this appointment with you, Alex," but they won't cancel it.
Right.
It's the whole thing with, if it's on the budget, it doesn't get cut. If it's an expense, it gets cut. If it's on the calendar, it doesn't get canceled. It just gets moved. Right. They go, hey, I can't do this at this time. Can you come 30 minutes later? I've got another appointment that's going to overlap. Okay, I'll come 30 minutes later to make a big sale and close some business and keep my customer happy.
And to summarize, much of what you were just saying is, bottom line is people buy from people, right?
They do.
It's that simple.
This is about relationships, and the best relationship you can have with your partners, with your customers, is to not feel like a sales guy. For them not to feel like you're a sales guy. And the only way for them not to feel like you're a sales guy is for you not to feel like you're a sales guy. So shift the methodology into, let me advise you on your technology, instead of let me try and figure out how to get you to buy all the crap that's in my stack. And so, with that, we're going to kind of send everybody away today with a couple of action items, right? We're going to kind of break down and segment out our customers. And I called them here the haves and the have-nots, but these are the people that have technical debt and the people that don't have technical debt. Each of those is going to get a different kind of a business review, right? We're going to send them a different kind of email template to set up a little mini business review at the end of the year. We're going to contact all of our customers between now and the end of the year and just make a recommendation to them. We're going to make a couple social media posts. I would recommend one a day from now until at least December 15th. By December 15th, stop. It's over. Your opportunity to meet with these customers is, not to say you shouldn't keep going, but the majority of it will be done for the folks who are going to answer this, who are going to respond to this. Download the templates and the social media stuff. That is right there at that web link, lifecycleinsights.io/EOY spend collateral 2. Apparently we had an EOY spend collateral 1 last year. So, but this is just some free collateral. You can have that document has all the templates on it for the emails. It has 5 or 6 marketing, just little quick images you can throw on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those kind of places, Twitter, if you're out there. And then obviously follow us between now and the end of the year. We're going to be having this conversation a lot. We're going to continue to put out more content, and we're actually working with another vendor on building a collaborative end of year checklist for all of your customers. That'll land on our social media too. So make sure you follow us there for a little bit more stuff, a little bit more information. And I wanted to take a second at the end of this just to remind everybody, Lifecycle Insights, we are a vendor. We are here to, obviously to work with MSPs. Our goal is to help MSPs do strategic business reviews, kind of elevate themselves into that customer success role out of that, he's just here to sell me stuff role. If you feel like you're struggling with that at your MSP, if you feel like your business reviews are something your customers don't want to show up for, that's what we help MSPs with. If you are an Everything MSP member on Facebook, you get $50 off your first 3 months with that coupon code, Everything MSP. It is case sensitive, so when you sign up for the platform, make sure you keep that the capital letters where they are, where they belong. And then you can check out the website for a free trial. So we give a 30-day free trial to everybody who signs up, and then includes a white glove onboarding. So we're kind of the unvendor in that we will invest in you before you invest in us to make sure that it's a successful relationship.
And that's, that makes the whole process so much easier. I think about the days of my early days of pulling together, whether it be for QBR or like an end of year planning meeting, all the time it takes to go through, your PSA, your RMM, pulling all these reports together. I mean, it's just so time consuming. I think that's one of the things that keeps many MSPs from doing the quarterly business reviews consistently, just because they think, oh man, I'm going to have to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 hours pulling all this together, and they might not even spend any money with me. And, you get that whole negativity, and, you've already failed because in your mind, you've said it, you're going to fail. And but let's face it, it takes a lot of time. And
we hear
so
two
many
reasons.
people,
We hear that one. We hear time. We hear two reasons MSPs don't do quarterly business reviews. I don't have the time to get it done because they take 6 to 8 hours a piece, 5 to 8 hours, whatever it is. We actually had one MSP tell us he was taking 12 and his business
wow.
reviews were very, very in detailed, very good. But he's down to 2 hours. And it's either that or my customers don't see the value. They don't want to show up. Right. And if you go across your entire customer base and the majority of your customers don't see the value in the meeting you're holding, there is a common denominator there, and it's the meeting you're holding. Right. So we need to change that meeting and turn that meeting into one that's more strategically guided towards our customers. It may be that we segment our customers off and say, hey, these customers only need to meet with me once a year because that's all the more technology centric a company they are. They're not growing at a rapid rate. Things don't change there a lot. Like once we got them aligned, they just kind of purr. So once a year, a good conversation with that customer works. You could have semi-annual customers and quarterly customers and even monthly customers if they're a rapid growth company. We've got a couple of partners who have clients who are acquiring other businesses rapidly. That means you're almost meeting with them every single month to figure out how you're going to make all of that align and how you're going to do all of that. So just depending on where your client base is, there's a different need for that strategic business meeting. So there's a couple reasons, but if you feel like you don't do those meetings for any reason, sit down and have a conversation with us. We'll have a 30-minute chat with you just to talk through it. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or just lifecycleinsights.io. There's a big contact us button right in the middle of the page. Feel free to reach out and have a chat with me about any or all of this. As you know, Dan, I'm pretty available on all the social medias and all the places.
And, two other quick things. If you struggle doing the QBRs because of an accountability thing, that's completely understandable, especially if you are a smaller MSP or you're a solo. So if you need, I'm gonna throw something out here. If you need an accountability call, like before the end of this month, and you would like us to call you, just send a message to me, and we'll reach out. I mean, we'll just give a quick call. I'm more than happy, and I'm sure Alex, you'd be more than happy as well, just to reach out. Sometimes that accountability, and just a quick call like that could help. And
it's like going to the gym, man. You never do it by yourself, but when somebody's meeting you there, you show up every time.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. And then the other thing too is I'm gonna do a shameless plug here for our Everything MSP calls.
Yeah.
Wednesday and Friday at 12 noon Eastern time. We stream it to our Facebook group, but you can also join us right on Zoom. And what we do is we just talk about a variety of topics. We talk about year-end planning. We talk about challenges of various deals. Wednesday's call, we had one of our members, one of our friends that's part of the group, who was working with a client and having some questions. And as a group, we all came together and just started throwing out different ideas. And I'll tell you what. Alex and Marnie are consistently on the calls. Which
you say that right after I missed Wednesdays. Thanks, Dan. Way to rub it in.
Exactly. But they're on the calls, and what I love, and there are other vendors too, but you guys are consistent with it. Is that you're sharing your knowledge. You're not there saying, hey, I just want to remind you about our product, and and here's I want you to buy it. You're just there to share, and that's the thing I love about our channel and vendors like yourself. So thank you for that. So with that being said, I don't see that we have any other questions here,
Nope.
And so I think we are good to go.
The biggest question was, are you sending out the slides and the content? We absolutely will. Unfortunately, I was responding back to hosts and panelists, which was just a direct message between me and Dan at this point. So that wasn't getting to anyone, but we'll get those sent out. Dan, you've got a list of folks who are on the webinar here, and I'll make sure and get these slides over to you so that you have a version you can send out to all the partners that were on the call today.
Yeah, and I it's funny. I just noticed that I'm on host and panelist as well.
We've been chatting it up with each other here, thinking we were talking to everybody else. So
So
a double failure here.
Anybody who thought we were ignoring you, we were definitely not.
If I could get a technology guy over here to help me out with this Zoom thing, it would be great. Exactly. If anybody knows a technology company, yeah. So
Yeah, Carrie
thanks for the
just
time,
let me
Dan.
know.
I always appreciate your group and the opportunity
Yeah.
to come out and present. And again, like Dan said, those Wednesday and Friday calls are fantastic. There's got to be 200 years experience in the industry on those calls,
Yeah.
at least. And that's just Ray Orsini. So, you know, there's a lot of guys there who have been around a long time, and there's somebody there with a specialty or a niche who understands the niche that you have a problem in. So if you got something that you need to have answered, go hang out with those, you know, those smart guys on the call. Yeah, I'm thinking we should do that math on Friday, Dan. We should have everybody put that number out there and add them all up.
I will do that.
That'll be entertaining.
Yeah.
And we'll get to figure out how old Keith is.
Yeah, exactly. And Perry, you know, 40 plus years, so probably even more. I'm old.
There you go.
I'm old as well. You know, my lack of hair isn't by choice.
90 plus for Keith.
90
Yeah.
plus.
I'm in denial, so I'm gonna say like 7 years, something
There
like
you
that.
go.
Yeah, it sounds like a good round number. But
So Perry,
I'm gonna stay in denial.
We expect you to be on the call tomorrow, Carrie. So there's your
Yeah, we need those 40 years in this grand total. I think we should shoot for 500. See if we can't get everybody to show up out there.
That is awesome.
Yeah. All right,
everybody. Alex, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. Great information. And you know, fourth quarter, like I said, the clock is ticking. So don't delay. Leverage these tools. Get out there. Just do it. And remember that done is better than perfect. With that being said, everybody, thank you very much. Have a great day, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks so much.